The evil is back, and it's back to swallow our souls. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Yes, this is a big one from the 80s. This movie was released unrated. It was released March 13th of 1987. It's an hour and 24 minutes long. Had a budget of $3.6 million, which was a hefty increase over the original budget for the original film. And when it was released that year, it grossed 5.7 in America, and worldwide it grossed a little over 10 million. That was due to the fact because it was released unrated, they only got a very limited theatrical release in America. So they didn't get the big wide release that they were hoping for originally, because they were trying to get an R rating. They even, instead of blood being red, a lot of the demon stuff that comes out is like green or different colors in this film. And that was them trying to get an R rating, but it didn't. The ratings board wouldn't give them an R rating. They wanted them to cut some stuff, and the studio, after watching the film, realized the best version of the film was the director's cut, so they released it unrated, and that's how it's always been seen. Now, Sam Raimi was back to write and direct this film. The great Bruce Campbell is back as Ashley J. Williams, but this is the film where we start seeing the character of Ash that we all know and love today, that was developed and even expanded on in Army of Darkness, which I'm going to review probably next week. I'm going to do Army of Darkness as well. Sarah Berry is in here as Annie. Dan Hicks is in here as Jake. And Ted Raimi is in here as the possessed Henrietta. And we'll talk about him in a little bit. Now, when Sam Raimi wanted to make the sequel, when they decided they were going to make a sequel, because after The Evil Dead was a success for them, they went on to do a movie called Crime Wave, which they co-wrote with the Coen brothers. That movie, Bruce Campbell says it perfectly in his book. It escaped. It wasn't released when it got its theatrical release. And it bombed. It was a complete bomb. Now, after the first Evil Dead, there was pressure on Raimi to do a sequel to The Evil Dead, and he actually came up with some ideas. But after Crime Wave bombed, he realized we need a hit movie or we're going to have a hard time getting another movie made in this town. So they wrote a script for Evil Dead 2, which actually was more like Army of Darkness. They took it, shopped it around to some studios. Everybody said no. Finally, Stephen King was in North Carolina filming a little movie called Maximum Overdrive while he was coked up out of his mind. That's not me quoting. That's not me making that up. That's a quote from Stephen King that he was coked out of his head for most of the filming of Maximum Overdrive. Just read some quotes from him; he'll tell you. And but he was a big fan of The Evil Dead, the original, and his quote was on the movie poster when they released it. So when he talked to Raimi and he realized they were having a hard time finding financing, he was working with Dino De Laurentiis on Maximum Overdrive. So he told Dino about this opportunity for the kids from the guys that made Evil Dead that want to make a sequel. Dino De Laurentiis gave them $3.6 million, and he wanted them to shoot it at his studios in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, the guys did not want to film there because they didn't feel comfortable with having the producer of their film at the studio while they're filming it. They wanted to be left alone. So they went to Wadesboro, North Carolina, which is about 3 hours away from Wilmington. And they shot most of the cabin stuff in a gymnasium, a junior high gymnasium. So it was a controlled set. So they filmed most of the film in North Carolina and some of it in Detroit, Michigan. Now, when the film kicks off, because they couldn't get the rights to use any footage, because a lot of people, especially at first, thought this was a remake. And it's not. It's a sequel. The problem was the rights for the first film were held by a different distribution company. So they couldn't get the rights to their own footage from the first film to use in this film. So basically, to get around that, they recapped the first film with having Ash going back to the cabin with Linda, although played by a different actress, and nobody else with them. Now, in the first film, there was more people that went with them. In this film, it's just Ash and Linda. And they go to the cabin, and shit goes wrong really fast. Now, obviously, there's some retconning here because the Book of the Dead, at the first film, Ash burned it in the fireplace. In this one, the book is intact. And the audio player is sitting on the desk that the professor had when he was trying to translate the Book of the Dead. They get there, they find it, Ash plays it, and before we know it, the evil comes and takes Linda, possesses her. Ash has to fight her off. She ends up getting killed. He cuts her head off. And then he has to take her head into the work shed because it keeps taunting him, so he's going to take it in and cut it with the chainsaw. When he enters the work shed, if you look above the door, Freddy Krueger's glove is hanging there. You got to look quick, but it's there. Mark Strostrom, who's this makeup effects artist, was working on Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4. He's working on this in between those films, and he had the glove, and Sam Raimi put it in there as just like an in joke. So Ash kills Linda, buries her, and then he's in the cabin. He gets possessed, and then the sun comes up, and we learn that the evil goes away when the sun's up. Ash tries to get out, but the bridge is out, so he can't get away from the cabin. He's stuck there. He goes back in the cabin. As night falls, the evil comes back and pretty much torments him. We find Henrietta in the basement, and he locks her down there, but the cabin comes alive and just starts taunting him. Then his hand goes bad, as we all know, and then we see Bruce Campbell, right out of Three Stooges, a lot of physical comedy in this film. And Bruce Campbell's brilliant doing this stuff. He's great in this film. He's always great, but he's definitely great in Evil Dead 2. And he's smashing plates over his head, and he's flipping himself over, and he's hitting his head off the stove and all this stuff. And then finally gets sick of it and takes a chain. Although there's a really cool shot. He's knocked unconscious for a second because he just smashed his head with something. And he's laying on the floor, and his hand sees the butcher knife across the floor. And it's a POV shot from his hand, and it starts crawling, trying to drag him itself and the body behind it to get to the butcher knife so he can kill Ash. And then finally Ash decides to cut his hand off with the chainsaw, which leads to the chainsaw hand later on in the film and in Army of Darkness. And then there's an awesome scene where there's a deer over the fireplace, and Ash goes to sit in a chair, and the chair collapses underneath him, and he falls to the ground. And the deer head looks at him, his eyes are wide open, and starts laughing, and the whole cabin starts laughing at him. It is batshit crazy, acid trip-inducing craziness, but it's awesome. It's very inventive. The camera work by Raimi is incredible. There wasn't many directors directing things like that back then, and Raimi was definitely a pioneer in some of this stuff. And then we get our new group of people coming to the cabin. Annie is the daughter of the professor and the mother who went to the cabin, and she and her boyfriend are going there. They just flew in to wherever we are. And she talks about how her dad found the Book of the Dead, and he went up to the family cabin to translate it with her mother. And they run into this, when they're on their way to the cabin, they realize the bridge is out. They meet up, they see Jake. He's blocking the roadway. He has like one of those flashing sign things to let people know there's a road hazard. And he tells them, look, you're not going that way. The bridge is out. But his girlfriend shows up, and they decide to take them the other way. There's another path to get to the cabin. When they get there, what they find is Ash on the floor, or Ash is there, blood all over the floor, and her parents are gone. So they think he killed her. So they throw him in the basement with Henrietta. And when they slowly start to realize there's something going on here, and Ash isn't the one that killed anybody, and we're introduced to her, they get him out, and one by one, they come and take them. And it's Ash and Annie left. They defeat evil. Ash is the only one left. He gets sucked through the time portal, ends up in medieval times, and that is the end of Evil Dead 2, and it sets up Army of Darkness. This film, I love the original Evil Dead. This film is the better film. Sam Raimi honed his skills by this point, and his direction is on point and just crazy as hell. Bruce Campbell's a better actor by this point. He's fantastic. Everything is just better, bigger and better. The effects are better. Everything's just better. I love Evil Dead 2. I always have. I would give Evil Dead 2 a 9.5 out of 10. It's a really, really great comedy horror film. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. I just gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Have you ever seen Evil Dead 2? What are your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back next week with more horror reviews. Have a great weekend. See you later.